Guys, this is also just an intro for the video you're about to watch, as it's titled Schalk Brits had a chat to Liam Delcom and myself on our podcast. The podcast is called To The Last Drop. It's out every Thursday at 9 a.m. It's on all major channels, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, on iona.fm, and I've also posted you on this channel. But this is a sample of what you're going to see, so please, if you like it, please go look out for the podcast and subscribe or listen to it on one of those channels. It's always great, and we're always looking for some feedback and always trying to make the thing better. So yeah, thanks for watching, and please enjoy. We're back, and our surprise guest is somebody who knows pretty much what goes on in the World Cup. He's a man who's won a World Cup himself and knows quite well the preparations for the Boks. Schalk Brits, welcome, Schalk. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, guys. It's absolutely thank you for being a surprise guest. Today, I'm sitting here on the floor trying to manage my back as I've been pushed into a sardine tin for 20 years of my life. So, yeah, all good.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It's much appreciated. You're a man who gets around. I thought you were going to use the excuse about sitting in a plane, the confines of a plane and picking up a back problem that way.
No, luckily not.
The Schalk, I mean, going into this World Cup now, it must bring back a lot of memories. I mean, does it still itch to be there, or is I suppose the back injury making you quite happy you're not there?
Look, I would say, Brennan, that itch is still there. It is. I can't believe how quickly 4 years have gone, and of course, it brings back memories of the boys getting the capping, the sense of. And within South Africa, we've got such a passionate public support, and it's quite amazing the way the South Africans get behind South Africa. And it was I mean, the performance against Wales and New Zealand was pretty spectacular, I guess. And so from our personal perspective, it's just great seeing the boys performing. I think it's actually a better squad than in 2019, a lot more maturity in the squad. We've got some injuries that we didn't have in 2019, but saying that is the boys are looking good.
Yeah.
Have you picked up? Have you picked up sort of similarities between what happened in 2019 and now? I'm just thinking of the team now is in Corsica, busy preparing there, and we've already heard some of the players saying how hot and humid it is there. And I recall before the Japan World Cup, you guys had that one game in Saitama against Japan, and the object of the exercise there was to acclimatize, get used to playing in those conditions, just from a physiological point of view, but then also to master the wet ball. Can we draw parallels there?
Not at all. I mean, eating the Japanese food is quite different to the French cuisine, I would say. You get stuck into some croissants. But I must say, and there's a lot more familiarities in France than there would be in Japan. I mean, just the culture is totally different. But going there, I think it's a time for the team to bond. It's time to work on final prep for the World Cup. And I think it's a good way of getting the players sort of out of the environment. And making sure that everything is set in their own ways. The one problem was harder if you train, and it's fantastic to train in France, but same with Japan, there is a lot of cameras around that can record training sessions, particular moves. Now you can run things that nobody would see. I don't think they'll send people to Corsica to videotape training sessions. And from a team perspective, it's great just to get your mind off the game, although there will be a lot of focus going into this World Cup on rugby, of course. But to do certain things that you couldn't do, and that you try to hide from the opposition and from other coaches, and run specific plays. Like you can see, Rassie and Jock was quite creative in the mauling this weekend against New Zealand. And I think there would be some rabbits out of the hat coming into being in the World Cup.
I was gonna ask. One of the things Jacques said after the game was, obviously one of the things they have to work on. There's lots of positives from the All Black game, but one of the things they have to work on, the fact that they were over the line twice and tackled out twice in that opening 20 minutes, and their finishing perhaps wasn't on the standard that they want. And in the World Cup, obviously, you get less chances. So if a coach says that, and I think that's always the thing that fascinates me, does it just mean repeat, rinse and repeat the whole time, or how do you in a training session work on finishing, if I can put it that way? So
I think that's just nitpicking, actually, Brendan. That's just saying something. I think after a performance like that against New Zealand, giving the biggest whooping ever, I think from a strategic perspective, having a 7-1 split was genius, although the general public is not South African public, but worldwide, they complaining about it. They are throwing their toys out of their cots about how you can do that. But it's a massive risk to take. If we had 2 injuries in the back or 3 injuries in the back line, we would have been properly stuffed. But because it counted in our favor, and now people are moaning about the 7-1 splits, and trying to focus on getting the ball down behind the line. Yes, there is something to work on, I guess. But saying that is you want, as a team, you want to have as many entries in the 22, and then you look at your conversion rate. And yet, the plays were good. Sometimes I would just say you give credit to New Zealand for having a never-die attitude. From that perspective, they'll look at technical things, definitely from a mauling and making sure the blockers were in the right position to make sure that the ball carrier can get the ball down. But sometimes you have to take your hat off, even in a performance like that against New Zealand. You say, well done, boys, awesome. But now the question is, can you keep that intensity? It doesn't help you give New Zealand a record whipping before the World Cup. You need your performance in the World Cup.
To your mind, I mean, when you look back to 2019 and in the intervening years, how the game has evolved, do you think the game has made a huge leap forward? I know there's been changes to laws to make the game safer, but whatever those changes have been, I mean, the Boks seem to have coped with them pretty well.
Look, Liam, the South African public wants, and this is, I guess, everyone now that I'm a couch potato, everyone wants the Boks to win every game. They want the Boks to perform every game. And they sometimes do not understand certain selections and certain combinations, I would say. But Rassie and Schalk has always mentioned, we don't really care what happens. The Lions test matches was big. That's every 12 years. And then in between World Cups, they were trying different combinations, making sure those combinations and depth has grown in a squad. People do. If I ask anyone in 2008 who's won the Tri-Nations back then, probably 1% can remember that. But ask people who won for example, the 07 or 2012 or 2015 World Cup, the percentage will increase significantly. And that is, I think, what Rassie and Schalk is focused on, is making sure he's got squad depth, firstly. If a guy like Andre Pollard goes down, and what has happened, if Lloyd goes down, who's in his spot? I know, and certain young players putting their hands up and saying, like Moody, listen, pick me at 13. And oh my goodness, what a revelation at 13. He's just a great rugby player and a great baller. Now you go into the World Cup. The one thing that is, I think, where the biggest variable is, and where it's breaking my mind. Yes, World Rugby is trying to make it safer, but yet certain of the calls is just quite frustrating, I would say, and there's a big focus on player safety, but it's got a massive impact on what happens in a game. I mean, if you take France, when we played France, was it last year, with Peter Steph's yellow red card, that can have a significant impact. And although they've made sure that you can upgrade or downgrade a card that's been given, it still plays a massive part. With one tackle where the runner of the ball has dipped into a tackle, it is just, that is my fear. You can have the best side, best prep, and then 1 millisecond of tipping into a tackle, that will mean the end of your World Cup, because winning a game with 40 men, as you saw this weekend, is extremely hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all our fears at the moment. I mean, we understand what World Rugby is trying to do, but it just seems sometimes common sense is probably not there. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, Liam and I chatted last week about Owen Farrell thing, and it's hard to explain that initial decision when a guy like Oxenchair gets 3 weeks for an accidental head touch. Some of these things don't quite make sense to us, and it's struggling. And you can see somebody's World Cup could be over in 4 years of prep down the drain with one incident.
Yeah, for me, Brendan, you have to look at intent, because that's a big part, and you must understand the game is fluent, moves quickly, things happen extremely quickly, and for me, it's intent. You can see if other players trying to rip another guy's head off, or if he's got reoccurring offences in the past. And then thirdly, you have to, in a game perspective, that can play such a big part in the outcome of a result. And that's unfortunate, the way they're going. And then lastly, I would say, is the repercussions of an incident. You have to have consistency with decisions. One guy can't get no weeks and the other guy get 6 weeks, and and that's things that drive players and coaches, I guess, crazy, and that's a coach killer as well. You've got a player that is phenomenal, and he gets, or any player in your squad in 80 minutes, and he gets a red card, and then he gets banned for the rest of the World Cup, and he's prepped for that, and there was no intent. There was a dipping of things, and I just want consistency across the board with either reffing, how they approach the game, and secondly, on the fines that they give to players after the incident. So you can't give one player for the same offence, one gets nothing and the other one gets 3 or 4 weeks.
That, of course, brings us back to what we spoke about earlier, and it's squad depth. And you should know a thing or two about squad depth, particularly in the hooking position. The Boks are pretty well fortified in that position, but then there is a guy like Dion Fourie, who is obviously exceptional. He brings such a vast skill set to that team. How do you see him sort of fitting into the overall picture?
Well, firstly, Dion is an unbelievable team player. But I would say at fly-off and at hooker, this is where we would hope we don't get injuries. Because if you look at weaknesses within a squad, we've got ample depth in all positions. I would say outside centre is tricky as well. A guy losing Lukanya is a big loss. A guy like Louis de Jager is a big loss. But if you only take 2 hookers on hopefully it was 7 games, you hope either Bongi or Malcolm won't go down. And although Dion is a great rugby player, hooker is quite a specific position. I think the last time he started a game was in 2018 or 2019 at hooker. Maybe, yeah. That's just where I hope luck goes our way. And you need luck to win a World Cup, that you don't get injuries in such positions. And like in the final when we went for, a 6-2 split, Billy got injured or had a niggle, Malcolm had a niggle, Cheslin had a niggle, and they made it through the final. It was a great win, but nobody knew how close we got to those players going off the pitch. So you do need a bit of luck, and hopefully the coin will, for the first time ever, fall on us 2 World Cups in a row. We don't want to wait another 12 years before we win another one. And in the message that I've seen is although the first World Cup, or 2019, not the first World Cup, but 2019 World Cup, the thing was focus on stronger together from a team perspective, and showing that irrelevant of your upbringing, your race, your religion, everything that sort of pulls us apart, that was the viewpoint of how we can get everyone together, showing South Africans that we can all work together and we can succeed. This World Cup with the players, it feels more, it's like we can build a legacy that it's never been done before, and now it can be done. And I think one thing that is amazing from the players' perspective, they've still got the belief. And the way we play is actually focused so much on World Cups. It's not pretty. Well, it's pretty for me, but for the general public, it's not so pretty the way we play. It is a brutal game. We dominate in the forwards. We come hard. We tackle the living crap out of anyone that comes in our channel. And we play to our strength, where in the past it felt like We try to play this beautiful game of New Zealand or Australia, move the ball around. Yes, now we've got the backs and the players to be exciting, but we still focus on the core strength of our game, and that is kicking well, mauling well, scrumming well, and we pick our bench and our squad in a way that plays to our strength.
Schalk, I've got to ask you one thing though. You know a lot of the players in the UK, and I mean you played there for a long time. What's going on with England?
Brennan, it's weird, right? I mean, so I played with Steve, and he was my captain at Saracens, a phenomenal captain. Wiggy that's involved there with was a great player and a great teammate. So and by all accounts, Steve's mannerism is totally different to Eddie. Eddie is brutal. He is to the point. He can cut with his tongue. And the only thing I can see, because they've got, well, people disagree with me. I think they've got phenomenal talent, but the word belief is very hard to grow in a squad, and that just looks like a team that they can be extremely physical, they can be extremely good, but they're just lacking that belief that is hard to see, right? Because although it is opposition now, it is still, there's a lot of friends of mine still playing in that squad, and they've got coaches that I believe in can get the best out of the players. So I hope, from my perspective, they will turn things around. It's going to be hard, but if there's someone that can do it, I hope Steve does it. And funny enough, I still think England will go through the pools, although they've got an easier draw. Well, everyone's got an easier draw than South Africa and Ireland and Scotland. And actually, I think Australia and New Zealand, Australia and England will meet in the quarterfinals. And I still think, if you think in 2007, that was a crap team. Not a crap team, but they lacked confidence. They got a record loss against South Africa, but yet they made the final. And once again, I think they made the last final, and I hope they come right this World Cup.
The draw certainly favors that, because you spoke earlier about the influence of a red card and how things can change very quickly. So you almost have to assume that they've got a decent chance of making a semi-final, and from there, you could then, card goes against a team that's more fancied, and suddenly they're in the final again, and then anything can happen.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I still think Argentina will win that pool, and then England will come second.
They play each other on the opening weekend, so that will probably determine the pool already quite early.
Yeah, I do think so. Funny enough, I think Wales is the one going into this World Cup that I feel is more vulnerable, although they had a decent result against England. But England wasn't firing at all. And they've got Fiji, and Fiji, I mean, just beat England. Fiji has got talent coming out of their ears. And if they've got their tails up, that's a team, if they get confident, they are hard to play against, because you can analyze as much as you like. They can pull you apart. They've got the talent, they've got the players, and now they've got the belief. They beat for the first time a first-tier team. Just before the World Cup, the first time they beat in England ever at Twickenham. So that's going to be a tough team to play against come World Cup. But one thing that I think on the World Cup is, people always look at probably the first 15, but World Cups, you need depth, and that's luckily what we've got. Where I feel Wales, yes, they got a great 15, probably. Yeah, but if they've got a couple of injuries in certain positions, they're going to struggle.
I'm going to ask you the last question from my side. Just I know if I ask you who's going to win it, you're going to say South Africa. So I'm not going to ask you that question. Who's going to be in the final with the Boks, and who's your dark horse in the tournament?
So let's say final-wise, I think we'll win our pool. Ireland will be second, I think. France is going to be New Zealand. So there's a lot of things that I think. Although I think Scotland's going to push Ireland very hard. So I'm making crazy predictions here, and I think actually Scotland will lose against Tonga, but Ireland will go through with points difference over Scotland, or I think there'll be 1 point difference. Then we'll play New Zealand in the quarters. France will beat Ireland, and then the Irish public will hate me again for this because I said they're not going to get past the quarterfinal again. And then on the other side of the draw, I think then France will go through. France will make it to the final, and we'll play in the final.
It's going to be a heartbreak. It's going to be a real heartbreak for Scotland because at the last World Cup they had that last pool game against Japan, and the winners obviously would go through to the knockouts. And this was also in the wake of the typhoon, and there was a lot of emotion. And Japan just played the game of their life. I mean, it was just incredible. And Scotland happened to be the team they were up against. So you have to feel for the Scots.
Yeah, look, it's just silly. I try to be a guy with a glass half full type of mentality, but the way the pools has been drawn is just ridiculous. I mean, to have the top 4 sides in one side of the draw is just silly. But that's the way it's on. We can't do anything about it. But so from my side, so if I would say, being a total, if I look at it from a neutral perspective, if New Zealand or South Africa doesn't win the World Cup, I would really hope for France or Ireland, either one of them win the World Cup, just for world rugby growth, that perspective. And then from a dark horse perspective, funny enough, the 2 sides that I love to watch is going to be Fiji and Tonga this year. Tonga with a lot of not expats, but other professionals that played either for New Zealand or Australia that's in their squad now with the rule change. They're going to be exciting. They struggle on set piece. I don't think they are. They've got just a different way of playing this game, but it's going to be an exciting game. Japan, I think I would love to say the Japanese because I love the culture, I love the people, but they don't have the same momentum going into this World Cup as the previous one. It's not at home. They had a bad run into the World Cup. But it's nice to see Portugal, and I'll probably watch Namibia, but dark horse, I would say Fiji. Sorry, Brendan, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. I think by now we would have learned the mute button, but it just... Schalk, just remind us the last thing before we go. What are you doing nowadays other than being on the golf course a lot?
So I worked for Remgrow for 2 years. So my background's accountancy. That's what I studied. So I was at Remgrow for 2 years, going through the private equity, venture capital, corporate finance, and internal audit side. Then I worked for a fund called Southern Road Capital, and all our managers, global managers. But although we raised and placed money from South Africa, I resigned in October because I was just away 3 days of the week and my wife working abroad. So I've been on an extended sabbatical since October, and I'll probably jump into the corporate world or into something else in beginning 2024. I'll be doing some work for SuperSport, and I've been doing some work for SuperSport and corporate engagements, but that's pretty much it. Spending time with the 4 most important investments in my life, and that's my 3 kids and my wife. So after that, it's been phenomenal.
And how many days other last question from me, because this is a wine show as well. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and we haven't even touched on the subject. So if you sit down sort of on a Friday night and there's the fire going and you have to open a bottle, what are you most likely to open?
Well, there's not just Friday evening and Friday afternoons. There's my favorite spot to go and visit is John Engelbrecht's Rissenvrede farm down the road, and it's for me just I have not had one bad bottle of Rissenvrede in my life. So if I've got, I mean, it's just a phenomenal wine. The atmosphere there or the environment is great, and for me, I'm quite. I mean, I didn't grow up in Stellenbosch. I came here to school and university, and only then the love for wine started. But Liam, I must say, a Resifleer blend is great. But there's, I mean, Beierskloof. I started with Beierskloof back in the day. The diesel, it's just a great wine. We're quite fortunate in South Africa from a wine perspective. You pay £30 for a bottle of average wine in the UK, and then you come to South Africa and you pay the same amount for an unbelievable bottle of wine. So we've got such amazing wine. But you must try Damascene if it's Jean. What's Jean's surname? Jean is a winemaker. It's on the way to Hermanus, and there's some beautiful wine farms there. Yeah, try it. It's great.
Yeah, so
Absolutely do that.
You started with Beierskloof. The rest of us started with Tassenberg. So,
well, I wouldn't say. Well, I would. At that time when we started with Tassenberg, it wasn't actually the taste that that attracted me. It was more the price and how quickly I can get slaughtered as a young student.
Yeah.
Nobody's got money when they're a student, or I didn't. So surely I had to pay for I paid for my own studies and
all about volume then.
Yeah, so sometimes you just have to take the quickest and cheapest route to wine heaven, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. Listen, Schalk, thanks for your time. It's good chatting to you, and we'll probably bump into you somewhere along the World Cup if you around Supersport and the functions there. But yeah, thanks for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks, Schalk.
No, thank you for your time, and go enjoy a glass of wine.
Definitely going to open the bottle now. So,
cheers, chaps. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Schalk. Have a good one. Thanks, man. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.